girlfriend of a Boston police officer whose body was found
in the murder trial of Karen Reed after the jury said it was unable to
they
reach
will
a
retry
verdict.
Karen Reed
is
after a
accused
judge
of
declared a mystery.
Hi, alternates. It's day 9 of the Karen Reed retrial, officially week 3. And let me tell you, as an unbiased juror, I already felt like the prosecution's case was a little shaky with regards to the inconsistent statements of laypersons. But today, we hear for the first time from one of the Canton PD officers who responded to the scene and collected evidence. And when I tell you that I literally had to pick up my jaw from the ground on at least 2 occasions, that's not even an exaggeration. But there is still tons of trial to be had. With that, let's get into it. Today we heard from 6 witnesses. First up, the defense continued their recross of forensic toxicologist Hannah Knowles. Defense attorney David Yannetti went straight to the science, pressing Hannah about the differences between serum and whole blood in blood alcohol testing. She admitted what every toxicologist knows. Whole blood is the more accurate sample. Serum typically reads higher, and while conversion rates do exist, they can vary based on a person's age, gender, body, weight, medications, and even what they ate that day. Although she didn't really want to commit to saying this. And the thing about this is that in testing Reed's sample, Knowles didn't account for any of Karen Reed's personal factors. No height, no weight, no food intake, nothing. The retrograde extrapolation used to come up with an estimate of Karen's BAC at 12:45 a.m. was not customized at all, which means the defense says that it could be very misleading. Next on the stand was Ryan Nagel, the brother of Juliana Julie Nagel, one of the partygoers at 34 Fairview. Ryan was at CF McCarthy's with his ex-girlfriend Heather and a friend, Ricky, on the night of January 28th. It doesn't appear from the testimony that I heard today that this group at CF McCarthy's had anything to do with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed's crew that night. So Ryan had been drinking but said that he wasn't impaired and he wasn't driving, so it wasn't that big a deal. After leaving CF McCarthy's sometime after 12 a.m., he got a text message from his sister Julie asking for a ride home. She was at 34 Fairview celebrating Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday. Being a good brother, Ryan and his friend Ricky, who was driving a Ford F-150 that night, headed over to Fairview. Ryan's ex-girlfriend Heather was in the back seat. As they drove toward Fairview on Cedar Crest, they encountered a black SUV coming from the opposite direction. They both had their turn signal to turn onto the same street. Even though Ricky had the right of way, he allowed the car coming at him to turn first and he followed behind it. Ryan testified that the black SUV, presumably belonging to Karen Reed, was not swerving or driving erratically. That black SUV pulled up forward in front of the Albert house, and Ricky in the Ford F-150 pulled right in front of 34 Fairview. After Ryan arrived, he texted his sister to let her know that she was there. She popped out from the side door of the Albert home and came over to the truck. Ryan opened the door and they spoke briefly. Julie wanted to know if Ryan and the gang wanted to come inside for a few drinks, but really they all wanted to go home. So they left Julie at the house. Ryan recalled watching as his sister re-entered the home and then Ricky drove off. Ryan remembered seeing the black SUV by the flagpole, and he actually recalled seeing a woman in the driver's seat looking forward with her hands on the wheel. There were no sounds coming out of the car, but he said that the interior dome lights of the car were on. But he didn't recall seeing anyone else inside of the SUV. He never saw anyone get in or out of the SUV. There was no man, no movement, and no one at the flagpole. The testimony was brief, and on cross, Yannetti reinforced the SUV was driving safely, using turn signals and staying in its lane. And as Ricky and Ryan drove off, Ryan noticed the woman was still in the vehicle, staring straight ahead. Then came witness Heather Maxson, Ryan Nagel's ex-girlfriend, who was the one riding in the back seat of the Ford F-150 that night. She very specifically remembered letting the SUV turn in front of them and confirmed that it was a male and a female inside the vehicle. How she saw this at night after being out drinking, I have no idea. But she said that the woman was driving. Again, she recalled that these 2 people in that black SUV were total strangers to her. Heather never saw anyone get out of the SUV. She didn't recall much conversation between Ryan and Julie. She said she was kind of in and out of it. And she admitted, or she was in and out of the conversation, not in and out of it like she was so drunk. But she did admit during cross-examination that she may have been looking at her phone during this time. She did confirm seeing the woman still in the SUV as they drove off away from 34 Fairview. And again, she said there was no visible movement or action outside of the car, and she didn't recall seeing a man. The next witness was Sarah Levinson, a nurse and a longtime friend of both the Nagel siblings and Brian Albert Jr. She had been to 34 Fairview about 20 times before this night, and she arrived at the birthday party for Albert Jr. on January 28th between 7 and 8 p.m. She got there with Julie. Julie's father had dropped the two of them off at Fairview, and they entered through the side of the door at 34 Fairview. Initially, the house was filled with family, aunts, mothers, and sisters, but many of them left early. 4 other young women eventually arrived, and then one of Brian Jr.'s cousins arrived. But those 5 additional people all left the residence by 11:30 p.m. Right before midnight, Sarah testified that it was only Albert Jr., Julie, and herself. But by midnight, the adults had returned, which is kind of funny because they are all adults, but basically she meant all the old people. Brian Albert Sr. and Brian Higgins arrived first, and then Nicole Albert, Caitlyn Albert, and Jen and Matt McCabe. Sarah says that after the group entered, no one else arrived at the house. She recalled that the vibe at this party was positive. People were socializing. They were playing music from the 70s and the 80s. There were no arguments and no tension. Originally, the plan was for Ryan Nagel to drive them back home, meaning her and Julie. But at some point, Jen McCabe told Sarah that they should stay a little bit longer because they were just starting to celebrate Brian Jr.'s birthday, and all the other young adults had left. Jen agreed to give Julie and Sarah a ride home if Ryan didn't want to come in. Julie left the house to chat with her brother for 5 minutes max, and that was it. That's at least what Sarah recalled. She recalled leaving between 1:30 or 2 a.m., although she did say that she was home by 2 a.m., so it was probably just a little bit earlier. The McCabes drove her home. She mentioned that there was a snow dusting on the ground as she exited the house, and she exited through the front door, which was unusual for her. And remember, she had been visiting this house for various years now and had been there about 20 times. But she was so focused on coming down the stairs and not slipping that she didn't really notice anything else. As she entered the vehicle, the McCabe vehicle, there was a joke about the loaf of bread in the 3rd row, and Jen jokingly said, "Want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" Sarah didn't recall seeing anything weird or out of the ordinary that night, outside of the house or even by the flagpole, but she says that she wasn't really looking that way. She did remember that at one point, as they got to the vehicle, Matt McCabe had come out and forgotten his jacket, so he ran back inside to retrieve it. During cross-examination, it came out that Sarah, even though she had been to the Albert home over 20 times, she had never actually met the family dog, Chloe. Other than this, Sarah admitted she was interviewed by Trooper Michael Proctor alone after Julie Nagel gave her the heads up. When asked if she spoke with Julie about the case before the interview, Sarah admitted somewhat. Then came one of 2 controversial witnesses of the day, Katie McLaughlin, a Canton firefighter and paramedic. She was the one who drove John O'Keefe to the hospital in the ambulance that morning. Miss McLaughlin testified that Karen Reed repeatedly said, "I hit him 4 times. McLaughlin said she was trying to get Karen's help with John's medical history and that Karen Reed was hysterical. But here's where things get messy. Defense attorney Alan Jackson grilled her about not documenting those alleged statements because she testified she never took notes and she never asked clarifying questions of Reed. So at this point, defense attorney Jackson queued up a video. It was the Dashcam footage from that night. And this is how that went down.
Ms. McLaughlin, where are your notes regarding this statement?
I don't have any.
Where'd they go?
It's not in the role that I was in, I'm not in a position to write a report on this type of call. It would be the lead paramedic or the officer on scene.
So you didn't write anything down, you didn't have any opportunity to write anything down?
I didn't.
You're just going by your memory?
Yes.
I'd like to play Exhibit 4, starting at runtime 8:50.
Okay.
Pause it. Just to orient us, can you tell me where you are in that video?
I might be in the middle there, although I didn't get a good look.
With the yellow and the red.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like you to pay special attention, Mr. McLaughlin, to your right and your left hands as this video plays. Could we go ahead and play it? Pause it. What are you looking down at?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I would write like stuff on my glove. That's something I'll do as I'm getting the information. Was that your question about notes?
So you were taking notes.
That's just me jotting down the demographics.
Odd, right? She was clearly taking notes, but she wasn't using a notepad. She was using her disposable latex glove. Yikes! She said she never wrote down what Karen Reed said. Instead, she was just writing down the victim's stats: name, date of birth, age, allergies, that type of stuff. When pressed how she passed along the message about I hit him, about his client, McLaughlin said that after taking these notes on her glove, she ran to the ambulance where firefighter Nuttall and Flamati were working on John. Now, she did admit that the ambulance's doors were shut and that she did either have to open them or somehow she got inside into Nuttall and Flamati. So, as firefighter Nuttall and Flamati were working on John, that's when McLaughlin told them John's stats, and then she offered up that information that she heard from Karen Reed about I hit him multiple times. The glove that she was taking notes on, she admitted on the stand that she disposed of it. Jackson also discredited the witness's claim that Karen Reed was hysterical by playing the same dash cam footage that you just saw. McLaughlin said it was hard to tell from watching this video what was happening because there was no volume. Then she said that Karen Reed was hysterical prior to this video or prior to when they clicked play, and that the portion just played was when Karen Reed was less hysterical, but still hysterical. Is she hysterical or is she not hysterical? I don't know. So now let's put a pin in this and see where it goes. But basically, what the defense attorney is getting at is that Nuttall, who was the prosecution's very first witness on day one, if you haven't watched day one, go back and watch it. Well, what they're getting at is probably that Nuttall likely didn't hear this I hit him statement from Karen Reed herself, but instead he heard it from Katie McLaughlin. I don't know. That's where my head goes as a juror, but what do you think? You let me know. But wait, what about the officers who were standing right there when Karen Reed allegedly said, I hit him? Well, Officer Seraph allegedly heard Karen Reed's statements and he didn't put her in handcuffs. This is what McLaughlin testified to. She said that Officer Seraph was there and he heard Karen Reed say this and then was like, wait a minute, what did you say? And that's when she said it again, meaning Karen Reed said it again, and that Officer Seraph sent for another officer. Anyway, Jackson then threw in a little nugget at the jurors through his questioning of McLaughlin. He said that not only had McLaughlin not documented his client's alleged words, but neither did any other officer on scene that night. Not one single officer. Then came another bombshell. McLaughlin was social media friends with Caitlyn Albert. They went to middle school and high school together, attended baby showers, took day trips with mutual friend groups. They had mutual friends. And you might recall that Caitlyn Albert is Brian Albert Sr.'s daughter, and she would have been at 34 Fairview on the night in question. Ouch. McLaughlin claimed in not so many words that she wouldn't even claim Caitlyn as a friend, as much as they have mutual friend groups. But she did mention that the relationship with Caitlyn was enough for her to be harassed online by random people before the first trial. And finally, it wasn't until day 9 where we heard for the first time from someone in the Canton Police Department. Now, listen, don't stop listening now because you are not going to want to miss this. Retired Canton Police Detective Paul Gallagher was the last one on the stand today. He was the highest ranking officer at the scene on the morning of January 29th, 2022. But let me explain. He was on duty on January 28th and was not supposed to be on duty the morning of January 29th. But at 6 a.m. or around 6 a.m., he got a phone call from Officer Good about what was going down at 34 Fairview. Gallagher decided to respond, even though he wasn't on duty. There was a blizzard, so he drove to the Canton PD in his own vehicle, which had four-wheel drive, which he said was better than driving a cruiser. But before he left his house, he did pack up a personal tent that he thought might be helpful to cover a dead body. While at the Canton PD headquarters, he got some winter gear and headed to 34 Fairview. According to Gallagher, by the time he got to 34 Fairview, the victim was no longer at the scene and there were no civilians present. So Karen, Carrie, and Jen were gone by then. The weather conditions were terrible. Snow was blowing sideways. There was loud winds. Visibility was low, and no one came out of nearby homes. At the scene were four other officers: Officer Good, Lieutenant Lanks, Officer McLeany, I believe is his name, and Officer Seraph. By the time that Gallagher arrived, the other officers had marked out the scene with crime scene tape. But it was so windy that the crime scene tape was like blowing like one of those huge sail, inflatable, flailing arm-looking men. I mean, what he describes was insane. Anyway, at the scene, Gallagher was the highest ranking officer. According to him, there was no indication that a crime had been committed, but regardless, they have to investigate. He was told where John's body was found by Lieutenant Lanks, and Lieutenant Lanks had been told by someone else because he hadn't seen where John's body was laying when he arrived. Gallagher said that there were a lot of footprints in the snow near where John's body was found, and the rest of the snow that covered the lawn to the entrance of 34 Fairview was clear, except for one set of footprints that belonged to Officer Lanks. As Gallagher looked at the area where John's body was found, he saw light pink spots in the snow. He believed it could be blood, and this is when he made what I will call a controversial decision. He sent another officer to get a leaf blower to preserve the scene. And yes, the leaf blower was his idea.
How deep was the snow covering that frozen ground?
Approximately 4 inches at that time.
When you wanted to look around the area, did you consider using a rake or a shovel?
I did.
And did you?
I did not.
Why didn't you use a shovel at that point?
I was afraid I would miss something or possibly break something.
What could you break with a shovel?
Anything, glass or anything of that nature.
What was your decision about how you would search that area? What did you want to see?
I wanted to see anything that was possible, whether it was any type of weapon or any type of medical bottle or any reason that he could have come to where he was.
Did you think of a way that you could look below the top of the snow without unresting the scene?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude?
Because of the blood, the pink spots I thought might be blood, I thought a leaf blower would be the best method because I have seen it used and to remove light layers of snow, and it can be controlled.
And after having seen that before and making that decision, what was the benefit of a leaf blower over a shovel?
I wasn't going to miss anything with a leaf blower, much better control.
And control, tell us what your intention, what was your hope with the leaf blower?
To clear the area, controlled, slowly, so any potential evidence of what happened to Mr. O'Keefe wouldn't be lost.
Did you have a leaf blower with you?
Did not.
So what did you do?
Sergeant Good volunteered to go get a leaf blower.
Did you remain at the scene?
I did.
And during this time, are you still have no information that it's a crime scene?
We had no information on a crime at that time.
Did Sergeant Good come back with the leaf blower?
He did.
Did you try to get any other items to help you?
Not that I recall.
Okay. When Sergeant Good came back with the leaf blower, did you use it?
I did.
Was it successful?
Very.
Tell us what you did.
I started with low speed and began whisking away the snow. And then I saw how it was uncovering those pink spots were becoming brighter red. So I verified it was frozen or coagulated blood at that time. And so out of the abundance of caution, I decided that that was something we may want to collect.
The jury was shown videos of the leaf blower in action. And honestly, it's not as bad as I was thinking in my head, but I will show you the two videos so that you can see for yourself.
stop and do food blog videos.
Could you stop there, please? You see the end of the leaf blower?
I do.
There's an object just below it at like 7 o'clock. Do you see that?
I do.
Did you discover something in that area?
We did.
What did you discover?
It's a cocktail glass.
Was it, did it have any damage to it?
It did.
Describe that for us.
It was broken on the top.
Could you continue the video, please, Ms. Gilman? Stop, please. There's some red spots. Is that what you identified as coagulated blood?
That is.
Below some of those spots and to the left, there's an area that's not white. It's brownish.
So, what do you think of this leaf blower? Was it a good idea or not? I don't know. Let me know in the comments because I'm interested in knowing what you guys think. Although I do think, well, probably not the best idea. Okay, so in that second video, you can see the faint image of something come into focus. And that thing was a piece of a glass. I believe it's a drinking glass. Here is Gallagher holding that broken drinking glass up to show the jury. But wait, if you're wondering what they did with the alleged blood spots, well, thinking it was important to preserve, Gallagher realized he didn't have evidence bags with him. So he went over to Lieutenant Kellerhart's house to get some plastic or glass cups. Lieutenant Kellerhart was a neighbor at Fairview and also an officer, but more on this guy in a bit. Anyway, after obtaining a stack of red Solo cups from Kellerhart, that's when Gallagher made the decision to preserve the pink spots on ice in red Solo cups. Yup, the kind that we all used to use to play beer pong in college with.
Why did you want to collect that?
Just out of abundance of caution, DNA. I expected it to be John's DNA. And I wasn't going to get a second chance at it. It was either collect it or never have it.
Were you making quick decisions under these circumstances?
Yes.
Did you ask somebody to get a container to put the coagulated blood in?
I ended up getting the containers.
Where did you get them from?
I got them from Lieutenant Kelleher, who lived in the neighborhood.
Did Lieutenant Gallagher ever come over to the scene?
He did not.
Did he work for the Canton Police Department?
He did.
Why didn't he come over to the scene with you?
Because he originally thought the scene was at 32.
Did you ask him to come over to the scene to help you?
No.
Did you expect him to come over to help you?
No.
Did you prefer he not?
Correct.
So when you get the containers, were they plastic cups?
Yes, they were red Solo cups.
And what was the purpose of using the red Solo cups?
They were plastic. They weren't going to leak. They weren't going to get soggy. They were large. I needed a small sample. My thought was because it was frozen or coagulated, that we could collect it, transport it, and transfer it to the crime lab, who could extract the DNA however they saw best fit.
So, what do you think? Is this evidence reliable? Yay or nay? Anyway, these red Solo cups were then placed in a Stop and Shop paper bag and taken to the Canton PD, where they were stored in a temporary evidence area inside of a refrigerator. Now, the only thing that I can think of, and I'm not even kidding here, this is actually completely off script. I remember thinking, like, what kind of refrigerator was this? Was it like a regular refrigerator where people like put their lunch, or was it an actual like legitimate evidence refrigerator where you only put evidence? I don't know. Maybe we'll never know the answer to that. Anyway, Gallagher testified that this evidence was at some point transferred to the state police on February 1st. Yikes. I am getting major ick from this testimony. And listen, on cross-examination conducted by Alan Jackson, the big point that he got out today was that even though Gallagher was the lead at the scene, this officer / detective / 30-plus year veteran of the police department never documented what he saw or his visit in a report. Gallagher downplayed this fact by saying that he didn't have to write a report because the other officers did. But wait, even though he collected evidence in red Solo cups, there were 6 total red Solo cups, he never documented where the alleged DNA in each Solo cup came from. So there was no diagram of the pink spots or which pink spot corresponded with which red Solo cups. Yikes, like major yikes. During this testimony, we also learned that Gallagher and Lanks returned to 34 Fairview that morning just after 9 a.m., and they returned because Jen McCabe had more information. When they arrived, they entered the home through the side door, and Gallagher said that he spoke with Brian Sr. and Lanks spoke with McCabe. He said he didn't see anything concerning inside the house or near the side door. After they left the residence, Gallagher said that he heard that the Canton PD were going to recuse themselves from this investigation, specifically because their best detective, Kevin Albert, was the brother of the homeowner. The end of Gallagher's cross felt a little bit rushed today, but the key points were that on January 29th, Karen Reed's car was taken to the Canton PD Sallyport and was there until the 1st of February. Additionally, even though he was the head honcho collecting evidence that day, he was not interviewed by anyone about this case until April 3rd, 2024. Oh, and Gallagher also told the jury that there were no pictures of John's body in the snow because he said they were attempting life-saving measures and they don't take pictures during life-saving measures, like attempts. Also, the Canton PD don't wear body-worn cameras, or at least they didn't in 2022. Attorney Jackson ended by hammering down that the Canton PD HQ was only 1.5 miles from 34 Fairview, and Gallagher could have easily sent one of the other officers to get the proper evidence-gathering equipment from the HQ, but he chose not to. Anyway, Gallagher will be back on the stand tomorrow for day 10. So, what did day 9 give us? Scientific testimony that didn't take Karen's unique biology into account. Witnesses who saw a woman alone in a car and no visible movement near the flagpole at 12:30, 12:45 a.m., a paramedic who may or may not have heard a confession, and a senior officer who blew away evidence, literally, and never filed a single report. If the burden is on the state to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, which it is, today's testimony might have just added a few more cracks to their foundation. All right, alternates, if you are short on time and just want a synopsis of each day's testimony, be sure to click follow. We will be back tomorrow with the full breakdown from day 10 of the Karen Reed retrial. Until then, think like a juror and decide like one too.